design systems are starting to become.
Okay, so masking. Start off with a couple simple examples and we'll go from there. So you're gonna have these two things. So we'll go click on this. Hopefully that'll work. And come on, and this, and that'll work. Okay, so we have two things. You have olives, okay, and you have this image right here with the bottle. So the goal is rather than use a fill color, okay, like I don't know, orange, pink, red, whatever. Let's go. You're going to use a texture, and that's where clipping masks can kind of be used. So what I need is to bring this olive texture into this composite. So we know how to do this. We've been doing it for a while. We click down here, get this move bar, move this over here, and you'll see that now I have olives over here. Perfect. Now what I need to do is get some text. So text can be kind of, temperamental, I guess. When you click on it, it kind of churns for a bit. So, and I just want, horizontal text works. Very much like a word processor, we're going to try and make the text a little bit bigger so that I can have something here, and we'll just maybe say olives. I think that's how you spell olives. Perfect. Now, you can see that there's my text. I can use free transform there once I'm done. So how do I do that? If I go over to move, we can go Command T to free transform, and hopefully that'll make this bigger. And the other thing we can do is we can change the font style. So once I have something down here like text, and you can see over here on the right-hand side, it says olives. I can double click on it. I should be able to double click on this T, and it goes right into my text, of which I want to try and get a font that has a little bit more, I guess you say covers more rather than really thin font, because you're not really going to see olives if it's a thin font, if that makes sense. So I kind of want to have this one like that so it takes up more real estate, okay? So how clipping masks work. The only thing here is just the word olives. This is my texture. So we'll just say this is my texture, because you got to do this in a certain order to make this work. If I take my texture and I put it above the word olives, okay, and let's just line it up so that one is above the other. And I probably have to make this a little bit bigger just so it covers that way. Okay. So texture is above the word. So what I want is olives to be inside the word olive. Okay. Line officially blown. So what I'm going to do here is right click anywhere on that gray bar. Don't right click on the thumbnail. And this is what we're looking at right now. So what should happen is if I click that, what happens is the texture above gets sucked down to the layer beneath it. So now I have olives, and it's kind of cool. You can kind of move things around inside that, but it's almost like a mask. You can only see the outline of the word olives, and you can move your olives around there. So if you were doing a movie poster and you wanted the name of the poster or the name of the title to be in fire or ice or something like that, you can put textures inside things to make that happen. So that's one example. The other, and here would be another example of how I would use that. So if you look at, I don't know if this will work, we'll see. We look at these two, past, present, and current prime minister. What I can do is I can probably select these eyes, hopefully. I don't know if it'll work. No. It's locking. What I'm trying to do is use the mask of the eye. Oh, it's probably not being done. You can actually use an outline, so I can kind of make the eyes look like they're going, changing direction. So I have the eye layer. I made a little circle where the eyes are, put the eyes in like as a clipping mask. And so now I can take the eyes and I can make Justin look wherever I want using a clipping mask, right? So he can be like, so think of propaganda, like Obama's talking and Justin Trudeau's like, oh, what are you doing type of thing. You can actually create the illusion of where people are staring. If they're not looking where you want, you can make a clipping mask and make them look where you want. So that would be a more sophisticated example of that. So what you have to do is put olives inside the word olive. So that's example number one. The other example is to use this. So what we can do here is we have a person. Person is cut out. How do we know that? It's a transparent background. We see this little checkerboard thing here. We have a texture. Okay, so what I'm going to do is make a clipping mask of that texture go over his face. Okay, so how do I do that? Well, you can zoom in here or make it a little bit smaller, but I'm just going to use this texture and make it a little bit smaller just so there's a little bit more detail on it. But same thing applies here. The texture is above his face. I right click on this, create clipping mask. Now it's over the outline of him. We haven't talked about blending modes, but blending modes are over here where it says normal, and they have different effects. So they take the layer and add different things to it. So if I use, say, something like, say, hard light or vivid light or something like that, you get that texture going over his face. So if you wanted to make him look like he's made of wood, you could do that. We'd almost have to maybe take the opacity and drop that down. The other thing I can do is something called masking. Okay, and masking is this. We know that his eye color, if I zoom in, right? Whoa, that's really close. Is not, I want to kind of keep some of the texture where his face would be. So how would I stop that? Some people would say, well, why don't we use the eraser and cut out a hole here? What we want to do is use this tool called mask, and it's in the bottom right-hand corner. It's a little circle inside a square, and when you click on it, you get this little white box. Masking works, we're going to show two examples here, with a brush. So this thing over here, okay? And it works using black and white. Okay, so one thing is you select this. The other thing is you have black and white. And then we have a brush size over here. So wherever I paint black, should happen, right? You'll see a little dot there. But what it's doing is it's erasing where the texture is. So if I want to kind of go over here and just where his mouth would be so it's a little bit clearer, I can do that. I can kind of say, well, I don't want his ears to be kind of made of wood, so I'm going to do that. This stuff that's all around his t-shirt, I'm just going to use paint black over that. So black means that you're erasing it. You can kind of tuck this texture in underneath his neck, right? The reason why we use this is because it's non-destructive. So if you use the eraser, that's kind of permanent. You don't want to have to keep doing undo, undo, undo if you make a mistake. If I flip these colors from black and white, so black being the foreground color and white being the background, if I hit this little arrow and flip them, I can actually undo what I did. So it's constant give and take using white and black to kind of make the mask appear. So you can get a texture, cut out his face, and then start doing some neat things. We're going to do a zombie example tomorrow where you're going to take a picture of yourself and put some textures over your face to kind of make your face look like you're a zombie. So that's how we start off doing it. The only other thing we can do here is, let's get this teacup here and this seal in here, hopefully. And the goal is to put the seal inside the coffee cup using masking. Okay, so a portion of the seal is what I need. I don't need all of it, so I'm going to use a quick select tool. You can spend a little bit more time on him. It's doing a pretty good job of judging where he is based on using the quick select tool. And I know, geez, I showed you all those other selection tools and we're not really using them. But for the most part, this is pretty easy as far as there's that. Get my move tool, bring this in. Whoa, that's pretty big. So we have to use free transform tool for a while. So if I hold down shift, I can keep that aspect ratio and move that up. Okay, and what I'm trying to do is, maybe I should have got a better coffee cup, but I'm going to mask it right around here so that it looks like he's sitting inside the coffee cup using masking. So I'm going to have this, hit that little circle inside the square, make sure I have a brush. Make sure the brush is black. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to play around with this stuff. I'm not going to change opacity, but the flow rate is something I'm going to do. So back in the day when we used airbrushes, as hard as you would press on the airbrush, the harder the brush would be. So I want this to be soft. So I'm going to keep the flow rate as if like it's really low, relatively low. So I have a little bit more, it's going to take me a little bit longer to paint and get rid of it. So you can see as I click once, it's just very translucent. So as you go back and forth, you can kind of do a little bit of this, and you're just going to erase it around the edge to make it look like he's sitting inside that. And again, if you make a mistake, you can flip the colors to the white. And for some of you guys, and I'm looking around the room, some people know a lot about some of the Photoshop. So we have a little bit of shadow here. So you kind of want to make sure that that stays intact. So you can add some other things. You can make some steam if you wanted. So he's in a hot cup of coffee, and maybe put a title like you think you're having a bad day, whatever. But we're just playing around with a little bit of masking. So you have three examples. You have the simple example, which is a clipping mask. You have a face example, which is using a texture, using the same thing, but a little bit of an intro to a masking technique using black as the brush that paints over it. And then you can kind of either use these images or find a couple for yourself and try and mask two images together. Okay, this is a very primitive example. Rather than use the eraser, I want you to get in the habit of using masking. Okay, so that's all we're doing for that part of the lesson outside